Let's talk about live music in music venues. During this pandemic, a lot of people have been hurt, people have died, people have lost their jobs, lost business revenue, and I want to talk about music venues and live clubs and live shows and the bands that we all like. If it wasn't for these independent music venues around the world, we probably wouldn't have most of the artists that we all know and love. So there's an organization in the United States, a National Independent Venue Association, and they're sponsoring, they're really trying to push a bill through Congress here to support that with all the help that businesses have gotten. A lot of businesses have not really gotten help. I'm not going to get into politics of it all, but write your senators and congressmen, please heed the call and support your music venues. I suggest support your artists, buy their records, but also support live streams. Some venues are working on having certain live streams of independent shows, but it's a rough time. Venues are closing every week, and some for good. I mean, they're all closed right now, but some for good. So I know there's been a lot of threads around here on live albums, and I just wanted to pinpoint it and laser beam it towards these music venues. Think of all the club owners, the bartenders, the wait staff, the techs, the stagehands, the musicians. I mean, they're not playing, they're not touring. The hotels, the cars, the gasoline, the vans, the fast food joints, the restaurants, the beer halls around the world. So there's a lot of great clubs that I went to growing up in San Francisco. So I'm going to show, literally, I just went through my collection here and just pulled a shitload of live albums. I tended to stay away from the big things. There might be some exceptions that I missed, but big places like, the Oakland Coliseum or, football and baseball stadiums. Not that I don't feel sorry for the people who work at those venues, but I'm trying to concentrate more on small clubs. A lot of these clubs are gone. A lot of these clubs have been gone for decades. So it just sort of represents what's going on now. Clubs come and go. Some became famous because of the times and places they were in and the bands that passed through their halls. Some were dark and dingy and smelly, and some were a little more refined. So I'm going to, let's talk about the Beatles. Okay. This is an album not by the Beatles, but this came out on Capitol in the 60s called Liverpool Today, Where It All Began. And this is sort of recorded, quote, live. So I think it was made to be a live album, not with Earl Preston Realms, the Richmond Group, the Michael Allen Group, and featuring the MC Bob Wooler. Bob Wooler was the DJ at the Cavern Club during the heyday of the Beatles early on. It's a great picture, but the Cavern Club, which is now a tourist site and does have live music, just finally opened this week after being closed during a majority of the pandemic. Now, it's in a different location. It's a few feet away because they tore down. That's another thing, clubs aren't usually put on national registries for historic significance. And we're going through that in Seattle with some clubs here. I've certainly seen that happen in San Francisco. Beatles Live at the Star Club. It's in Hamburg, Germany. This is from a tape that came out. This has been issued so many different times, so many different ways. One of the clubs, the Reeperbahn, in the Reeperbahn in Hamburg, Germany, the Star Club, the Kaiser Keller that the Beatles played early on. Rough recording, but historically significant. So let's talk there. There's the Hamburg scene and the Star Club. Brooklyn Academy of Music, not really a club, but just wanted to show this. Laurie Anderson, her live, United States of America, United States Live. This is recorded in 1983 at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, obviously, in New York. You can't talk about clubs in New York, even though it's a little bit larger, but the Apollo, and of course the famous album, James Brown at the Apollo. This is a reissue that came out in the 70s on Solid Smoke Records, a reissue label out of San Francisco. The Byrds, Untitled, one record live, one record in the studio, the famous Chestnut Mare studio. But the live album, they're going through their jammy period, but this is the great period with Clarence White and Gene Parsons, of course, and Roger McGuinn. And the live records were recorded, I believe, at the Fillmore East. So, you know, larger venue. I think it was 2,300, 2,400 people attended that. Obviously, it no longer exists, but these independent places nurtured so much great music, and the bands, again, bands and artists that we all love. Now, not really a live album, but this is Johnny Cash's first record that he recorded for American Recordings, produced by Rick Rubin. Several of the songs were recorded live at the Viper Room in LA, right off the Sunset Strip. It was a club that was owned by Johnny Depp. A little trivia, it's where River Phoenix died in front of the club after ODing, in front of the Viper Room in Los Angeles. But again, another great, cool little small venue. I saw a couple of shows there over the years. But again, you know, support these clubs that are doing online events, support artists that are doing live streams. You know, do some pay-per-view, support them aside from just buying their records. Leonard Cohen, this is in Fredericton. This is New Brunswick, Canada. I don't know the size of the venue. Obviously, it's a larger venue, the Fredericton Playhouse, so I assume it's a larger venue, but still, there's a couple of live Leonard Cohen things I could show. You know, this week, this is recorded in August, actually September 1st, but in August 1970, he did this famous show at the Isle of Wight Festival. Obviously not a venue, but 50 years celebration of that. So any Leonard Cohen album is great. And of course, playing all the venues, which I'm not really familiar with in Canada. But, you know, below, tell me your favorite venue or your favorite live album at a club, independent venue. Judy Collins concert. This is one at Town Hall in New York, on I think it's Irving Place. Right near Park Avenue, above 14th Street in Manhattan. So many records recorded at Town Hall. Now, for this particular video, I'm not including pulling a lot of jazz records, but there's so many live things at Town Hall. Keystone Corner in San Francisco, the Black Hawk, Miles Davis' Black Hawk, other venues, Village Vanguard, Village Gate in New York, some great famous jazz clubs around the country. That could be a separate video. For this, I'm kind of sticking with even though some jazz artists played at some of these venues, I'm not pulling any jazz artists for this. One of my favorite venues that I went to literally hundreds of times in San Francisco is still around. Hopefully, it'll still be around a little longer once this all ends. Is the Great American Music Hall, and this is a live Ry Cooder record. Corridos Famosos. This is recorded, I believe, in 2013. So 2012 or 2013, this is recorded. I attended one of these shows, a fantastic show. His 1976 live, Ry Cooder live album was also recorded at the Great American Music Hall, and I saw that there. But I've seen everyone from the Cowboy Junkies to Billy Bragg to Yoko Ono to Sammy Hagar. We had a record party when I worked in a record factory, and our Christmas party, Sammy Hagar played. But it's literally hundreds of shows, and I can't even think I said Ry Cooder, J.J. Cale, some punk shows, some new wave shows, the Red House Painters, so many others. Okay, Max's Kansas City, the famous New York club. This was a Record Store Day release, I believe. This is Live Devo. This is when David Bowie introduced the band when they were first appearing. I saw them around this time when they played at the Mabuhay Gardens. The Mabuhay was turned into a famous punk club in San Francisco. The nickname was the Fab Mab. And I saw the Dead Kennedys, the Damned, Devo, Crime, X, almost all the punk bands that would come through from the UK, from LA, from around the country. We'd go there a lot and see that. It had been a Filipino restaurant, and like a lot of these venues that were sort of part-time venues, some producers, I say that loosely, took it over to put on shows. So I think it started at like 1 or 2 nights a week, putting in punk shows. Then it grew, so that was became the fabulous Mabuhay Gardens on Broadway, right in the midst of all the strip joints in San Francisco's North Beach district. A club, again, that no longer exists in its original form was the Matrix. The Matrix is on Fillmore Street below Union Street in San Francisco. I think it's like a lounge now called the White Rabbit, which makes sense because the original Matrix was, one of the owners was Marty Ballin from the Jefferson Airplane. There have been, over recent years, some great reissues or issues from tapes found, like Velvet Underground Live at the Matrix and these two record store day from 1967 shows of the Doors. And it's a tiny club. I was too young to go because it was a 21-year older club, and these, obviously I was about, I was 13, 14 when these records were coming out. I mean, when these shows were happening, so I wasn't going to these shows, but the Matrix was a very important club. Again, these are the things that you need to support. You need to support these people any way you can. You know, check out, if you have clubs in your city, in your area, go to their website, see what they're doing, see what they're trying to do to support them, you know. If they're selling records through their site, if they're selling t-shirts through their site, any kind of merch, try to support them. Now, Carnegie Hall, obviously, is a larger venue. It's a whole different scenario. But I did, throughout this, pull some Carnegie Hall, just because I like these live records. Here's one, Flat and Scruggs at Carnegie Hall. And this was great, because this was in the 60s, I believe. What's the date on this? Because this is the time, 1962, you know, country music coming to Carnegie Hall, coming to New York City. I love bluegrass, I love Flat and Scruggs. This is a really great record. Sounds fabulous too. So Carnegie Hall, one of the great places. A club that I never went to, which is actually a larger somewhat larger. I don't know the history of it. Those of you in the East Coast might know, in the New England, Fleetwood Mac. This is at the Boston Tea Party, famous spot in New York. In Boston. This is a multi-record, 4-record set, maybe 3 records and 4 records. This is the Peter Green years, and this is an amazing live record with, I think, Jeremy Spencer and, let's see, oh yeah, this is when they had the 5. So they had Jeremy Spencer and Danny Kerwin. So great album. There's different incarnations. There's some single discs, some double discs that have separate nights, but this is the entire one. This came out in 2007, so it's probably no longer available, but check it out. Great, fabulous sounding record. But the Boston Tea Party. Probably, I've never been to live music in Boston, so I don't know all the other clubs. Of course, the Fillmore West. I saw The Who at the Fillmore West in '69, but one of the great live records, Aretha live at the Fillmore, and Jerry Wexler and R.F. Martin, Bill Graham presents. Ray Charles is on here, leading the musicians. An incredible, one of the great live records. Fillmore West was an incredible place. Now the Fillmore still exists under the name of the Fillmore. Obviously it's closed like everything else now. Great venue. Just a little history. The Fillmore was a ballroom taken over by Bill Graham to do shows, and the competitor in a way, but there wasn't really friendly competition, was the Avalon, which was on Sutter Street. Years later, it became the Regency 2 movie theater, and now it's back to, I think, a ballroom or a event space, and that's on Sutter near Van Ness in San Francisco. But Bill Graham, eventually, the neighborhood got so sketchy. It was right next to my family's synagogue, Beth Israel. The Fillmore, he had to close it down, and he took over the Carousel Ballroom, which was on Market Street and South Van Ness, and it was above a car dealership. And he changed the name. That became the Fillmore West. Years later, he closed it, did shows at Winterland, did larger shows like the Day in the Green shows, produced major tours for Bob Dylan, the Rolling Stones. Bill Graham was a major figure in the San Francisco ballroom scene and concert scene. He's one of the first people that really did it right. His shows were immaculately produced. Music, for the most part, started on time, and he really mixed artists, like with Miles Davis and Woody Herman Big Band, with The Who and Hugh Masekela. Just great. I mean, I feel, he was a tempestuous character, but I saw some of the best shows produced by Bill Graham in San Francisco during the 70s especially. The Bitter End in New York City, great album, live, Donny Hathaway, Live at the Bitter End, 1971. I never went to the Bitter End, but this is a cool record, cool sounding record, somewhat intimate. There's been great live albums recorded at the Bitter End. Can't think of a lot of them off the top of my head, so please, any other venues and shows at some of these clubs that you consider great record. The New Orleans house in Berkeley no longer exists, but famous record recorded there, the first Todd Tuna record, live, intimate setting. I went to a lot of shows in Berkeley. There was Berkeley Square, there was the Keystone Berkeley, a lot of great venues, mid-size, and of course things on and off the Bears Lair at the University of California Berkeley campus. A lot of East Coast clubs, the Paramount Theater years later, which is obviously a larger deco, beautiful theater where I saw Bruce Springsteen and Bob Marley and the like. But there was a Record Store Day expanded version of this a couple years ago that has the entire show. But this is a beautiful sounding record. Jack Cassidy and Jorma Kaukonen from the Airplane. Hot Tuna's first album. The Kinks at Kelvin Hall. Not a great sounding record. Not many Kinks albums sound great. This is a time where a lot of bands, a lot of record companies had no idea how to really record artists, rock and roll especially in this day. Where is Kelvin Hall? One of you UK folks will tell me. I don't know the size or the scope of it, but there's a lot of clubs in New York that in London that I never visited. Marquee Club I never visited. Ronnie Scott's I went to, which is a jazz club. Is that Oxford Street? I can't remember now. Regent Street? I don't know. I went there. I went to the Roundhouse. I went to Ding Walls. Maybe I did go to the Marquee later. I think I saw, was it Jules and the Polar Bears or one of those kind of groups? Okay, Van Morrison. This is recorded all over. Recorded in Los Angeles and London, summer of 1973. Incredible live album. Too Late to Stop Now has a small string quartet backing him up as well as the band. One of the best live albums, really well recorded, from 1974. Let's see, where was it recorded? I should know this off the top of my head, but it probably doesn't say right here. Recorded the Troubadour, the Strip. The Roxy, the Troubadour. I've been to those clubs many times over the years. This was recorded live at the Troubadour, the Santa Monica Civic, which is obviously a larger venue, and the Rainbow Theatre in London. Never went to the Rainbow Theatre, but obviously one of the more famous venues. Again, I feel like pledge night here. This is pledge night. Support your local venues. Go to their websites. See any way to support them. Buy a friggin' hat. Buy a record. Just make a donation if you're still working. It's hard. I think this was recorded at the Bitter End. It was recorded at the Bitter End. Randy Newman Live, 1971, but was recorded late in 1970. This is a great record. It came out very early in his career. It was his second or third record. Love this record. Mama Told Me Not to Come. That was a huge hit by Three Dog Night. They covered it. So Long Dad. Living Without You. Songs recorded by Harry Nilsson. Did a whole record on him. I think It's Gonna Rain Today. One of the most beautiful songs Randy Newman's ever written. But Live at the Bitter End. Was it the Bitter End, the Bottom Line? I always think of which the Springsteen did the Bottom Line. Or the Bitter End, the Bottom Line shows in 75. I don't have those on vinyl. I do have tapes of those. Old Kentucky Home Cowboy. Davy the Fat Boy, which was based on the bomb that they dropped in Hiroshima. So great live album. The Bitter End. Support your clubs. I'm going to keep saying that. Going back to Carnegie Hall. Okay. I love Phil Oakes. Phil Oakes comes dressed at Carnegie Hall, gunfight at Carnegie Hall, dressed in a gold lame suit like Elvis Presley wore. Some fans won over by this. He had kind of more of a rock band with him, but some people booed him because of his folk things, reminiscent of early Dylan, right? He did some cover stuff. He did obviously he did I Ain't Marching Anymore. He does a cover of Merle Haggard's Okie from a Stokey. He does a medley, a Buddy Holly medley. Phil Oakes doing a Buddy Holly medley. Not Fade Away. Think It Over. Oh boy, every day. It's not so fast, not fade away. But he has Pleasures from the Harbor. The great Lincoln Majorca, who played on Pleasures of the Harbor, played on some of he's a great piano player, who is a stunningly beautiful piano player, plays with him. So Carnegie Hall, obviously a bigger venue. The last time I went to Carnegie, I've been there several times, was in 2007, I think, for a Joni Mitchell celebration of her life, a bunch of guest artists. She wasn't there, but it was great. And then, of course, the great folk artist Odetta at Carnegie Hall as well. So Carnegie Hall, larger venue. I don't feel sorry. I'm sure they're getting supported. But again, think of all the ushers, the vendors, the merch salesmen, everybody, the union crew that has to set up a venue like that. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers live. A lot of this, not all of it, was recorded at the Wilton Theater in Los Angeles. Also, it was recorded at the Hammersmith Odeon in London, another venue I've never, it's a larger venue. And Irvine Meadows Amphitheater in Irvine, California, south of Los Angeles. So Tom Petty. But, I saw Tom Petty in small clubs. I saw him at Winterland, Think about it. All these artists that play these large venues, they started out playing in clubs. I saw U2 at the Old Waldorf, tiny venue. I saw Cheap Trick, tiny venue. Old Waldorf was a great place. I think there's a couple things. I think I showed you through the television. Maybe I haven't gotten there yet. Spoiler alert. But the Old Waldorf eventually was a club that Bill Graham put shows on. But small club. I'm trying to think. It held maybe 400 people, 300 people. I don't know. Maybe it's less. I saw Rick Danko there. I saw, God, who did I see there? I saw Elvis Costello's very first American show there. There was a period of time I saw so many new wave punk shows. They're more on the new wave side. I saw Patti Smith at the Boarding House, another great place. The Boarding House, San Francisco, long torn down, condos put up. Emmylou Harris, Talking Heads. What's her name? Anyway, so many artists. Kinky Friedman as Texas Jew Boys. The Whiskey A Go-Go Again in Los Angeles, one of the great clubs, along with the Roxy. A lot of them became sort of heavy metal hair band clubs later on in the 80s. Otis Redding live at the Whiskey, an incredible show. This record version has a big poster. I'm not going to take it out right now. But again, these clubs, you love going to clubs. You get all that sweaty, loud noise, the music, the beer, the cocktails, the live recordings that came out of these venues. One of the great rock and roll live records, Lou Reed, Rock and Roll Animal. Now I don't remember where this was recorded. Someone's going to tell me. Academy of Music, so maybe at Howard Stein's Academy of Music, New York City. There you go. Don't even know that. I don't remember hearing that, but this is a great sounding record. Max's Kansas City. Of course, Max is 1968. Wrong club. This is Maxwell's in Hoboken, New Jersey. The Replacement, Grave. I think this was a record store day release, or at least an independent release in 2017. Great live show. I didn't obviously see them in Hoboken. I saw them in San Francisco. This is 1986, but a great live album. Support your clubs. Now, we're going farther north in England. We're going to, let's see, where are we going? The National Ballroom in Kilburn. I don't know it, but Rank. Not a great live album, but again, England, the UK, well, in America too, a lot of these ballrooms, these mid-sized ballrooms, these bands would play around. I saw the Smiths at a mid to large size venue in Oakland. Oakland Arena. It wasn't the Oakland Arena, but I forgot the name of it right now. Mid-sized, terrible sound, and they weren't very good. I love the Smiths, but it just was a bad time. But Rank, the Smiths. Now this is what my spoiler, what I was talking about. The Old Waldorf, 1978. I don't know if I saw this show, but I did see television at the Old Waldorf. This just came out several years ago. This is 2003, but I think it's on vinyl. Just came out the last couple of years. A great venue for live music. Saw Meatloaf perform the entire Bat Out of Hell in this small club with his whole entourage of Jim Steinman and I forgot the name of the woman who sings Dashboard Lights or whatever that is. Meatloaf. It was great. So many great shows there. Old Waldorf, San Francisco, Battery Street, and right in the financial district in this modern complex on a sort of a side roof thing, this freestanding building. I think it might still, part of it shared with a comedy club called The Punchline. I think that's still there maybe. Of course, not now, nothing's there. But television. I mean, Neil Young has so many live albums, and Cellar Door. I picked the Roxy just to showcase him. I could pick a million live Neil Young records. Roxy in Los Angeles. Okay, so again, this is another Roxy, one of the great live albums. Stand on the Fire, Warren Zevon. This is where he rocks out. I mean, wild man, sounds incredible. Little note, this record, I don't know if it's Vinyl Me Please maybe, is putting out the full show of this. So pre-order it. It'll be out not till February, I think, of next year. But pre-orders are available. I signed up for mine because I love Warren Zevon. Roxy Music LA. So, ends with Z. Perfect. Support this. Write letters, emails to your congressmen and senators and support these music venues. They actually need a cash infusion. Sure, we're supporting, the airlines and all these other necessities in some cases, but, bailouts for the people are important. And all these musicians and these tech workers and stagehands and bartenders and servers and just all the related things. I don't feel sorry for Ticketmaster though, but all these related venues, the pubs and bars and even just everything in and around these locations. These people have invested a lot and brought us a lot of joy musically and culturally forever. Jazz, country, rock and roll, hip hop, every kind of music, whatever you're into, live clubs, DJs, I didn't even get into that thing because I didn't really know how to showcase it. It's coming from my point of view, my personal experiences, the kind of music that I've used to go see live and I will continue to go see live. So support the artist. I'm going to put a link down for the Independent Venue Music Association. Independent, whatever it's called. And there'll be some things of how you can help, maybe some suggestions or articles about it. So Mazzy loves you and enjoy the music. Thanks, everybody.